So we thought of making Bharat Dhani. And this is a big sacrifice for the people, those who have come, as the Consulate General did mention. But when it comes to the role for our Janam Bhoomi, it is important for us to contribute. You just visioned, and you were saying that 55 trillion, 2047, India is 100. And no dream is small, to be honest. And there is no harm in dreaming. And you came up with a lot of statistics also that how it is possible. We have seen it, you did compare with Japan, you did compare with China. My only concern when we talk about the productivity that we're talking about, formalization, there's a lot of things when we're seeing in India, new innovations, you know. So there was a report they were talking about, like, very new innovators are coming.
Yes.
But when you talk about the success rate, you don't see that. So what do you think?
See, that is actually intrinsic to any innovation. Even if you look at in Silicon Valley, this phenomenon of a failed entrepreneur is very common. It's just, in general, innovation, is a phenomenon where success rate is very low. When you become successful, you actually, end up becoming very rich and making a contribution as well. So when you look at the overall success rates for startups in India, it's not any different from that across the globe. So that's just the phenomenon of innovation and entrepreneurship. And as you were rightly saying, today, a lot of the startups are also looking to solve India's problems for India at Indian price points and India scale. I think this is something that I always mention. It's not enough to be able to solve a problem for a country, small country, maybe like a Singapore, or maybe, you have to be able to solve problems at India scale. And I think that many of the startups are starting to do. So I'm quite optimistic that, entrepreneurship will drive a lot of productivity growth in India. As I was saying, from 2004 to 2014, using World Bank data, the rate of new firm creation was only 3.2%. From 2014 onwards, it's orders of magnitude higher, using World Bank data, not government data. And as a result, India today has the third largest entrepreneurial ecosystem with more than 120 unicorns. On innovation as well, as I was saying, we basically used to be 85th ranked in 2015. Today we are 39th. So there is a lot of momentum, good policies that have been implemented over the last 10 years. And therefore, I'm incredibly optimistic about entrepreneurship, driving productivity growth, and thereby, helping to make India Dhanwan.
Let's make Bharat Dhanwan together. When we talk about Honorable Prime Minister Modi, his vision for Bharat, what he says, Amrit Kal, and everyone has to contribute.
Yep.
So it's not about that you can just talk about it, but how you can just do it and be part of this journey of rising Bharat, which was Sone ki Chidiya at a time, and we can bring it now with the diamond-studded Sona, to be honest. And it is doable, it is possible. So I have one question to you, which will be a concluding note. Let me hear from you, because sitting here, the diaspora is contributing a lot, and Prime Minister always acknowledges that. With you standing, Rakesh ji, we were together 2 months ago in New York. So, investment part of it. And there are a lot of states, those who are opening up. Earlier it was, and it is becoming doing business at very ease. So how easy it is?
I think this is one area where India has certainly, done well in the last 10 years. If you look at, I'll again quote data, the World Bank's ease of doing, business rankings, where India used to be ranked 146 in 2014. When the ease of doing business rankings were closed by World Bank, India was actually in the 60s. So from ranked in the 140s to 60s is significant movement. But again, I actually, if you ask me, I'm not happy with India being in the 60s. We should be targeting to be in the top 20, and that's where a lot of states need to be starting. Need to actually focus on. And I think this is an aspect that I have emphasized as well, which is that while the central government actually has been doing reforms, and especially over the last 10 years, it's now the responsibility of states to start doing reforms. For instance, if you looked at the farm laws, etc., states were talking about their power, but we know very well that power and responsibility are two sides of the same coin. So when states talk about their power, they, I think, need to actually own up to their responsibility to do the reforms as well, and that is what will help India actually move into the top 20, in the ease of of doing business. As I was telling you earlier as well, I actually remain incredibly impatient, on reforms. And I think precisely to the first part of your question, Angus Madison's book, Oxford University Press book, showed that is actually this idea of, Sone ki Chidiya is not some dream. India accounted for at least 1/3 of world's GDP consistently every year, every decade, every century up until 1750 AD. At least 1/3. And just to give us a comparison, the country that we are here in the United States, actually for the last 75 years, when it's been the global leader, has accounted for about, on average, 27-28%. So think about it, actually, for 3/4 of a century versus 17.5 centuries, and on average 27-28% versus minimum 33%. That's what. And for those critics who actually say, oh, it happened only because of the population, I think it's important to keep in mind that during those times, the population moved to places that offered prosperity.
Yes.
Population was not random.
Yes,
So I think this is something, and there are many commentators who often want to actually, whenever something positive, fact is mentioned about, they want to look for, some of the negatives in the positive itself. And therefore, to that audience, I actually want to point out that the population was something that was not random. So we cannot dismiss the fact that India accounted for such large proportions of world GDP just by saying, oh, it was because of population, because population responded to prosperity. So I think that is what India did, and it's important to keep in mind, India did that by pursuing trade, wealth creation, thinking about wealth creation as a boon, not as a bane, as it happened during the socialist era. And I think this is something which is actually, I mentioned anecdotally, if you look at, all of us do that. I think now Dhanteras, for instance, today we'll go and do Lakshmi Puja, right? What do we write there actually in the altar? We write Shubh Labh. We basically do good and create profits out of that, and yet we had a narrative actually back during the socialist era talking about profit as a dirty word, which actually harmed our country a lot. And I think we have to get back to that. That is what our DNA is, of thinking about entrepreneurship and trade and private sector activity as basically contributors to welfare. And I think India, under the able leadership of the current Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Modi, is actually indeed getting back to to that. And I think thinking about wealth creation as a boon, not as a bane.
Thank you so very much. Happy Dhanteras.
My pleasure, and I wish you all a very happy Diwali, happy Dhanteras, and tomorrow Narak Chaturdashi, and Diwali as well, day after tomorrow. Thank you.